Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is handing a small piece of paper to another person in exchange for food, or shelter, or medicine. That small piece of paper has no real value. It is just paper, and yet the entire world agrees it is worth something. This is the greatest trick humanity ever played on itself. We invented something with no intrinsic value, and then agreed that it was the most important thing in the world. Money did not just change how we trade, money changed how we think, how we relate to each other, how wars are fought, how civilizations rise and fall. But money did not always exist. For most of human history, there was no money at all. For hundreds of thousands of years, people simply shared. Within small tribes and communities, food, tools, and shelter were given freely, not bought or sold. Just shared, because everyone needed everyone else to survive. But as communities grew larger, sharing became complicated. A farmer who grew wheat might need a pot from the potter. But the potter might not need wheat. He might need leather from the tanner, and the tanner might need wheat. But the farmer had already given it away. This problem had a name: the double coincidence of wants. The solution was barter. You give me what I have, I give you what I need. We find something we both agree on. Barter worked for small communities, but it was slow, inefficient, and frustrating. Every transaction required two people to want exactly what the other person had. Around 3000 BC, in ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, something new appeared. Not coins, not paper, grain and silver, used as a standard measure of value. If you wanted to buy something, you paid in a fixed weight of silver or a fixed amount of grain. This was the birth of commodity money. The ancient Mesopotamians also invented something else remarkable: credit. Clay tablets discovered by archaeologists. Record loans made thousands of years ago. A farmer could borrow grain in spring and promise to repay with interest after the harvest. Debt is older than coins, older than writing itself, but the greatest leap forward came from a small kingdom in western Turkey. Around 600 BC, in the kingdom of Lydia, King Alyattes did something nobody had ever done before. He minted the world's first coins, small, standardized lumps of electrum, a natural mixture of gold and silver, stamped with the king's seal. The stamp was everything. It meant the king guaranteed the weight and purity of the metal. You did not need to weigh it yourself. You did not need to test it. The king's mark made it trustworthy. For the first time, money was backed by authority, not just by the metal itself. The idea spread immediately. Within a century, Greek city-states were minting their own coins. Persia minted coins. India minted coins. China minted coins. Independently, at almost the same time. Coins made trade faster, easier, and possible between total strangers who had never met before. But coins had a problem. They were heavy. A merchant carrying enough gold coins to buy a shipload of silk was carrying something dangerously heavy. He could be robbed. He could be shipwrecked. The coins could be lost forever. There had to be a better way. The solution came from China. During the Tang dynasty, around 800 AD, Chinese merchants began leaving their heavy coins with trusted deposit houses. In exchange, they received a paper receipt, a piece of paper saying, "This person has this much money, deposited safely." The world's first paper money was born. The Chinese government noticed this system and saw an opportunity. By the Song dynasty, around 1000 AD, the government took control. They began printing official paper money, called jiaozi. For the first time in history, a government was printing money, backed not by metal, but by a promise. When Marco Polo traveled to China in the 13th century, he saw paper money for the first time. He was completely astonished. He wrote that the great Khan made his paper pass for gold and silver, and all people in all lands accepted it willingly. When Marco Polo brought this story back to Europe, nobody believed him. Europe was still using coins. But even in Europe, a new idea was developing. Italian merchants in Florence, Venice, and Genoa developed the first banking system. A merchant in Florence could deposit money with a banker, receive a letter of credit, travel to Venice, and withdraw the same amount from a partner bank. No heavy coins needed. The Medici family of Florence built one of the most powerful banks in the world. They financed popes and kings. They funded wars and explorations. They practically invented modern banking. Letters of credit became bills of exchange. Bills of exchange became checks. The system of moving money without moving metal was changing the world. In 1609, the Amsterdam Wisselbank was founded. It was the world's first true central bank. Merchants could deposit coins and receive standardized receipts that circulated as money. For the first time, a bank created money simply by issuing more receipts than the actual coins it held. This was the birth of fractional reserve banking. In 1694, the Bank of England was founded, and it introduced something revolutionary: the banknote, a printed piece of paper issued by the bank, promising to pay the bearer a fixed amount of gold on demand. People trusted the bank, so they trusted the note. Paper money had arrived in Europe. For 200 years, European paper money was backed by gold. If you had a banknote, you could walk into a bank and exchange it for gold. This was called the gold standard. It gave paper money real, tangible value. People trusted it because behind the paper, there was always gold. But the gold standard had a problem. There was only so much gold in the world. As economies grew, governments needed more money, but they could not print more money than the gold they had. Economic growth was limited by how much gold existed. The world needed a new system. The First World War changed everything. European governments needed to pay for an enormously expensive war. They did not have enough gold, so they did something radical. They printed money without gold backing it. For the first time, paper money was backed by nothing except the government's promise. In Germany after World War I, this created a catastrophe. The government printed so much money that the currency became worthless. By 1923, a loaf of bread in Germany cost 200 billion marks. People carried money in wheelbarrows. Some people burned banknotes for warmth because they were cheaper than firewood. Hyperinflation showed the world the terrifying power of money. When people lose faith in money, civilization itself begins to break down. Shops empty. Savings disappear overnight. Ordinary people become desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. Germany's economic collapse helped bring Adolf Hitler to power. After World War II, the world needed a new financial order. In 1944, representatives from 44 nations met at a hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, United States. They agreed on a new system. All currencies would be tied to the US dollar, and the US dollar would be tied to gold. America would be the anchor of the world's financial system. But in 1971, US President Richard Nixon made a phone call that changed the world. He announced that America was ending the link between the dollar and gold. From that moment, no currency in the world was backed by gold anymore. Every currency on Earth was now backed by nothing except trust. This is the system we use today. Fiat money. From the Latin word fiat, meaning let it be done. Money that has value, simply because the government says it does, and because everyone agrees to believe it. The entire global economy, worth over $100 trillion, is built on collective belief. Meanwhile, the way money moved was changing just as dramatically. In 1950, a New York businessman named Frank McNamara had dinner at a restaurant. When the bill came, he realized he had left his wallet at home. His wife had to pay. Embarrassed, he had an idea. The next year, Frank McNamara returned to the same restaurant. He paid his bill with a small cardboard card, the Diners Club card, the world's first credit card. It was accepted at 27 restaurants in New York City. Within 1 year, it had 20,000 members. Money was becoming invisible. Credit cards became charge cards. Charge cards became debit cards. Debit cards became online payments. Online payments became contactless taps. By 2023, more than half of all payments worldwide were made without any physical money changing hands. No coins, no paper, just data moving between computers. And then in 2009, something even stranger happened. A person, or group of people, using the name Satoshi Nakamoto, published a document online. It described a new kind of money. Money with no government, no bank, no central authority, controlled by nobody and by everybody. It was called Bitcoin. Bitcoin used a technology called blockchain. Every transaction was recorded on thousands of computers simultaneously. No single person or government could control or alter the record. For the first time in history, money existed without needing anyone to trust anyone. The math did the trusting. Whether Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies will replace traditional money, nobody knows yet. Some countries have banned them. Some countries have adopted them. El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender in 2021, the first country in the world to do so. The battle over what money should be is still being fought. Think about how far money has traveled, from sharing food around a fire to clay tablets recording grain loans, from Lydian gold coins stamped with a lion's head to Chinese paper notes backed by government promise, from Medici letters of credit to Bank of England banknotes, from gold standard to fiat currency, from paper wallets to digital taps, from Satoshi Nakamoto's mysterious white paper to El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. In 10,000 years, the form of money changed completely, every few centuries, but one thing never changed. Money only works when people believe in it. Money is the most successful shared story in human history. Yuval Noah Harari, the historian, wrote, "Money is the most universal and most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised. Not gold, not government, not religion. Trust. That is all money has ever been. But money also has a dark side. Every war in history had money at its center. Every empire was built on the control of money. Every revolution was partly about who controlled the financial system. Money gave power to those who had it and took everything from those who did not. The greatest financial crisis in modern history happened in 2008. Banks had been lending money that did not exist to people who could not repay it. When the system collapsed, millions of ordinary people lost their homes, their savings, and their jobs, not because of a war, not because of a natural disaster, because of numbers on a computer screen. And yet, despite every crisis, despite every hyperinflation, despite every bank collapse, despite every war fought over gold, money survived. Because humanity had no alternative. We needed a way to trust strangers, to trade across distances, to store value across time. Money, for all its flaws, was the best idea we ever had. From the first grain weighed in Mesopotamia to the last Bitcoin mined on a server farm, money tells the story of humanity better than any history book. It tells us what we valued, what we feared, what we were willing to fight for, and how far we were willing to trust a complete stranger. The next time you hold a banknote, or tap your phone to pay, or check your bank balance online, remember what you are really holding. Not paper, not data, not gold. You are holding 10,000 years of human trust, 10,000 years of people agreeing that this, whatever this is worth something. That is the most powerful idea in the history of the world. Thank you for watching this story on Storia English. If you enjoyed learning English through this story, please subscribe to Storia English. Every week we bring you a new story from history, told in clear, slow, simple English, so you can improve your listening, vocabulary, and confidence, naturally, without stress. We will see you in the next story.